Eugene Gale had been a bread shutter for his middle school life and wanted to be quiet and pass high school without much trouble. He glances at the last seat where the top bully in class Colton Cole was spitting on Zealot who was sitting in front of him. He notices how a guy at the front desk looks like a girl and walks up to him. He suddenly grabs Gray Yun's chest and stands him up and grabs him down as well, shouting to his friend he was actually a guy. Gray snaps and elbows Colton on the throat and grabs his bag while Colton is stunned by the hit. Colton tries to retaliate but found out his hands were tied up by the bag strap. Gray grabs him by the hair and begins slapping him. Colton tries to threaten but stops after seeing Gray's scary look. Gray keeps slapping him while the whole class watches and finally threatens him to not make any scene in his class. In class 1 to 8, red-hair boy Ben Park tells his friend Alex go about the incident with Colton. He does believe the story and visits class 1 to 5 to look at the boy in the story. Others who he can't believe while looking Gray. On the side, Alex sees Gerard, Jean and Ben starts the conversation. Alex glares at him hearing Gerard call his and Ben's name but Gerard just laughs it off. After school Gray meets Colton again under a bridge with two other guys. Colton says he would have won if Gray didn't use underhanded moves when his two friends laugh at him. Hearing being called Gray states the situation he was in as a frail person who is outnumbered and outclassed, insulting them in the process. The guy starts glaring at Gray after the insult and walks up to him. Gray stays calm, suppressing his fear, and starts planning. When the fat guy tries to lay a hand on him, Gray lowers his head, dodging the hand, and grabs the lower tip of the pant and pulls it, making the fat guy fall. Using this chance he jumps on his chest and kicks him on the chin. The hat guy tries to attack but Gray throws dirt in his eyes. While he is surprised by the sudden dirt throw, Gray hit him in the eye with the corner of his phone. After those were immobilized he takes out his belt and smacks Colton with the belt buckle. After dropping all three of them he walks off, leaving them crying. Gerard had followed Gray knowing Colton would try to do something but is surprised seeing Gray handle it. Rumors spread causing some to be jealous while others believed that they could beat him. Next day a group of students enters and the masked guy Philip Kim sits in front of Gray trying to intimidate them using his past glory, demanding an apology for beating up his cousin yesterday. Gray refused to apologize and tell him he didn't know who he was. Mad Philip tries to shout at him but is interrupted by a laugh. Ben Park grabs him by the shoulder and tells him his past glory was nothing to brag about. He tightens his grip on his shoulder and warns him to not act big and leave the classroom with a laughing face. He glares at the extras on the back and tells them to get out as well, dragging Philip out. On the rooftop, he is mad about what had just happened and takes out his phone to call someone. He looks at someone called Donald Na but passes as he was too scary. He then ends up on Jimmy Bay, who already had problems with Ben. Jimmy Bay tells three students to maintain a posture while stepping in one of the guy's hands when he gets the call saying Ben Park was trying to crush him. Philip knew about his bad blood with Ben Park. He tries to agitate him by telling him lies using past incidents. Jimmy, taking the bait, tells Philip that he will destroy Ben and not to tell Donald no. Philip is smiling thinking Jimmy was stupid, and Jimmy angrily asks Jack to tell his boys to bring Ben Park to him so that he can crush him. Eugene is still surprised how a frail guy like him could make such a scary face. Gray notices Eugene's gaze and asks if he wanted to say something. Eugene, surprised, begins to inform him about the underpass being a hangout place for delinquents. Gray goes to the restroom and comes back to find out that Eugene's neck was sore and figured something must have happened, but Eugene decides to stay quiet. Philip hears the discussion of Ben and Alex going to the pool place beside the underpass and notifies Jack to be in the underpass after school. Afterward in class, Ben and Alex decide to skip their class and go early to the pool place to see the girl. Two new bullies try to test Gray and antagonize him during the class. Gray could move as a teacher entered right after but is furious to think how to set up better examples for them. With Colton gone, other bullies start acting up again. Even though they saw Colton get slapped, they could really believe that Gray was strong, so they keeps testing him. But when Eugene saw a determined face of Gray, Ben and Alex see a beautiful girl in the pool house and tries to act cool. On the underpass, Jack comes earlier than said time to wait for Ben, not realizing he has missed them. After class, the bullies walk out of the room while looking at Gray laughing. Near the underpass, he saw a few students avoiding it due to Yusin's student. He glances and tried to avoid conflict, but Harper calls him. While he is being dragged, he begins to plan his actions, debating if he should let it go as Harper smacks him on the head but decides otherwise. He grabs the arm and places it on the wall while Harper isn't sure what is happening. He draws a pen out of his pocket and stabs it on the hand. Harper draws back a bit with pain and Gray uses this chance to strike his head with a brick. Gray grabs the coughing and bleeding Harper by the head, getting ready for others. The other four get ready to attack while Gray plans to strike the first guy who moves. One guy goes ahead to punch but gets kicked by Gerard. One of the guys informs Jack about his identity. Gerard asks if Gray has any idea and Gray honestly says that he was hoping to take out one more guy before getting beaten. Jack starts to threaten them but Ben, who had saw Gray smack Harper, arrived with Alex. Ben noticed that they must have been there for him and tell them he was on Gray's side. Jack tells that he was just after Ben but Ben refused to go and starts insulting Jimmy about the incident. Jack starts insulting back and the first one to snap was Alex. He jumps in and starts punching Jack. Pink-haired guy kicks him and others start ganging up on him. Ben tells others to jump in and starts fighting as well. Gerard handles two guys and Ben grabs Jack's wrist, surprising Jack with the grip strength. Harper finds a chance and grabs Gray's collar. Gray with an unfazed look tells the Harper he should have punched instead of grabbing his collar. He grabs Harper's pinky finger and breaks it. While Harper shouts in pain, he then tells him he could have grabbed his head instead of the collar while grabbing Harper's head. He smacks the head to the wall, surprising everyone with the crack sound. He looks at everyone to stop as they are frozen in place. In the pool house, Ben talks about how Gray went to his cram school after the fight, which didn't really suit him, but Alex and Gerard think it suits him perfectly. In cram school class, he apologizes to the teacher for disturbing him in between classes and starts preparing for it. After class, the talk about Jimmy and Ben's past incident is heard, but Gray just looks at his notes. In an abandoned factory, Jimmy scolded them for getting beaten up and is especially rough on Harper for getting beaten by someone unknown. Jimmy tells Harper to no appear unless he is called for, and Harper, angry, decides to report to Donald now. Hand on his head, Jimmy thinks he should have gone to take Ben himself instead of letting lackeys do it. Though he was at the top now, others were still aiming for him, so he wanted to crush him before words get out. Gray start packing up, but Hugo, thinking of Gray as a loser, pulls his note out of his hand and tells him he is gonna borrow it. While walking out of the class, a blue-haired guy notices him and is surprised he enrolled at Unjiang High instead of Science High, remembering him being on the podium winning award after award. He concludes that due to a past incident, he must have joined Unjiang. Next day, Colton comes to class, which surprises a few students. He still acts intimidating to others but starts trembling the moment Gray walks in. On the rooftop, Colton talks with his friend when Evan comes in to suggest teaming up on Gray and tries to convince Colton with the hope of applying to both Colton and Phillips. Evan drops saliva on Gray's book, trying to agitate him. Gray looks around and notices Colton is still scared by others and needs a bit more convincing. As Evan insults and threatens Gray, Gray wipes the book with tissue and smacks Evan on the face with its corner. As he smacks Evan, the other guy jumps in to find a book flying to his face, disturbing his sight. He is able to slap the book away but gets kneed in the face. Gray picks up the book, climbs on Evan and keeps smacking him with it, drawing blood. He remembers the incident on the last day of middle school and his promise to never lose again. After Evan is knocked out, Gray goes back to his seat and starts wiping blood off his book. Everyone in the class got one lesson engraved in their mind: don't mess with Gray. Ben and Alex are both impressed when they hear about the fight. Ben brings up talk about Jimmy and Alex replies next attack wouldn't be half-baked. Philip, who hears that Jimmy sends out his goons to do the work, is mad and walks off furious, complaining to himself. In the abandoned factory, Jimmy is planning how to handle Ben but brings back the topic to Harper, who lost to a no-name student. He embarrasses him and tells him to beat the guy who embarrassed him. Harper is scared but can't talk back to Jimmy and says yes. As he walks away, he still trembles when remembers Gray. The talk about Gray is widespread. Their guys are discussing when Gerard drops in and tells about Yusin's student running away due to him. Eugene tries to tell the other two about Gerard's middle school rumors but runs to class as soon as the bell rings. Hugo sees Harper stressed out and hears him looking for a Yujang student on a call. He suggests trying his cram school to look as if there were few Yujang students there. Harper tries to scold him but thinks that he could act like he is trying while messing with some pushover in the cram school. He asks Hugo where the cram school was. Hugo imagines ruling street with Harper's help but is brought back to reality with Harper's voice. He starts explaining about the cram school and sends him a map of the location. Jack is keeping watch on Ben and his friends while talking to the lackey beside him. He thinks he should count Gray and people to look out for as well. Gray asks for notes from Hugo. Hugo gives the note and walks out to smoke. Outside he begins to brag about knowing Harper. He tells Thinks that was looking for someone from Yujang who he was evenly matched with and wanted to crush him. He informs that Harper was coming to interrogate students from Yujang here. Hugo gets Harper's calls and calls his friend to go to him. Gray remembers the name from the last encounter and wonders if they are the same people. Hugo gathers students from Unjiang except for a few weak-looking ones. Harper's interrogate them so at least he could show that he tried. One student asks if he could pass but gets kicked when he tries to. Harper grabs him by the head and starts beating him. Others are too scared to do anything though. Harper hears a call from behind and turns, calling him in rage, but freezes seeing who it was. The moment he sees Gray, who walks to him clicking his pen, Harper's brain is filled with the memory of his getting beat. Hugo, not knowing, tries to say Gray was a nobody but is surprised to see him tremble. Hugo is flabbergasted seeing Harper quite. Harper is confused when he sees Gray there when he was trying to act like he tried to find him. Hearing him click his pen, Harper's hand throb. After a few seconds Gray walks by him as he can't even look at him. When Gray passed, all he could feel wasn't embarrassment but relief. Eugene is happy with the state of the class, with Colton just sleeping through class and Evan walking out of class when period ends. In class, he saw Gray sleeping, so closed the curtain. Gray remembers his friend due to it and wakes up to see Eugene reading beside the window. He tells him it is fine to open the curtain and remembers his friend again. The curtain opens. Eugene informs them that it's their turn for duty next week. Philip is confused about what to do with Gray as he remembers his talk with his cousin. He believes Jimmy would take care of Ben and thinks he should stay low till then, but remembers his talk with Gray. He glances outside to see Gray walking by. Philip wasn't a strong fighter. He always bullied those weaker than him and go too far to show off power. But the ones he couldn't beat, he used his parents' money to make friends with other guys and make them beat stronger ones while he stand behind and watch. Blonde guy Teddy Jean and his friend Chad Jang stops outside the bar and enter after a call tells them to. Inside, attendants tell him the room number, where he finds Philip surrounded by boys and girls. Philip introduces his friend and girls, which makes Teddy believe the middle school rumor. Philip tells he has some trouble with small fries, which Teddy offers to take care of to gain some favor from him. While talking, Teddy and Chad sees Gray and pours Coke over him while he is walking by. Gray glared at them and Teddy warns him to not at big or he would kill him. Gray remembers seeing Colton afraid of the blonde in the cafeteria. Hearing the bell ring, they tell wash off and slams the window. Gray comes back to class soaked and asks if Eugene knew about the delinquent in the school, and he replied yes. He describes the blonde guy and Eugene tells him the name was Teddy Jean and he was a maniac. Just when he tries to give more details, teacher walked in, silencing the class. In class 1, Philip is grinning looking at Terry and thinking he found a lapdog. He decided to crush both while he had the momentum and laughs when he sees Ben playing outside. After PE class, Alex asks Ben to go to a pool tournament with dinner bet, but Ben rejects, saying he was having a feast back home. In the pool house, Jimmy waits while letting Philip call right, much to the annoyance of other students in the place. The student tries to confront him grabbing the phone, but Jimmy laughs and grabs the guy's face and punches him. Another student recognizes Jimmy and walks away with their injured friend. After a while, Jimmy picks up Philip's phone and tells him he was at the pool house. At the pool house, Philip and Jimmy talk about plans and Jimmy asks if it will succeed in trying to act big. Jimmy knows full well about him conquering his middle school with money in mouth. Jimmy asks for upfront payment as the plan was gonna succeed anyway. Philip, wanting to join Union, knew he had to beat Ben and conquer the Unjiang High. With money from the Union and Philip, Jimmy had nothing to lose, so he kept playing, waiting for Ben and Alex. One of Alex's friends points at Jimmy when they enter and Jimmy grins looking at him. Alex remembers the pummeling he received last year and the difference in power between them. Alex turns to walk out, but Jimmy grabs him by the hair and starts beating him while Philip smiles, thinking the plan worked. Jimmy keeps insulting him while beating him. One tries to help but is stopped by Alex. Jimmy understands Alex's plan to take the hit and not let it escalate. He sends Philip his account number and starts slamming the face on the ground, hoping Ben would react to seeing his face messed up. He keeps slamming the face until a call about Donald knock comes. He tosses Alex, saying they would meet soon and to tell Ben he was coming for him soon. Early in the morning, Gray calls to school and starts cleaning class, thinking of yesterday's incident. Though it would be better to get involved, he believed it would be easy this time around, and he was angry with the incident as well. Eugene sees Gerard while walking to class and get distracted, then remembers his class duty to find out Gray had already cleaned up the class. He apologizes for being late, but Gray just asked to continue yesterday's talk with Teddy. Teddy was infamous for beating a teacher and was affiliated with gangs and just hang out with his friend Chad. They bully them slowly to submission and has some student transfer out or quit school as well. Eugene asks why he was always early. He replies to study ahead, which gives him an edge in every situation. After a long assembly, he grabs a student by 3 years and begins drawing on him with a marker. He notices Gray walking on and orders him to take the marker and draw an X on Gray's back. Fearing for his life, he runs to Gray and draws big X. Gray grabs his collar but understands it wasn't willing and asks his class. Hearing it in class 1, he understands it must be Teddy's doing and look around for him. Hearing the student say he didn't have a choice, he flashed back to the middle school incident and let him go in angry. He tried to make excuses saying Teddy was insane sadist, infuriating Gray even more. He glares at him saying not to rope other people into his problem. In class, Ben messages Alex but doesn't get any reply. He asks one of the students who knows Alex, but he lies to Ben saying he didn't know. In the restroom, Teddy kicks a student on the toilet and Philip starts hitting him after noticing him lose the will to fight, using that chance to set himself above them. As Philip and Teddy walk out, Gray notices them gripping his shirt. The next day, teacher asked for on-duty student to clean the spill outside and Gray volunteered as Eugene was finishing his homework. Teddy uses this chance to take Gray's bag. Eugene tries to stop them by grabbing the bag but lets go after getting smacked on the head a few times. He drops the bag on the ground and kicks it into a mop bucket. Gray sees the bag and asks if the student near did it, but he denies it and points up where he sees Teddy. He tries to bait him to climb stairs. Gray was mad but understood if he attacked he would be kicked down, as he was in a disadvantageous situation both psychologically and physically. He understands that he was being baited, so he walks away as it wasn't the right time and he only starts a fight he knows he can win. Eugene apologizes for letting him take the bag, but Gray says it is fine and tells him to visit the infirmary. After that, Teddy keeps messing with him but Gray didn't retaliate. Eugene becomes curious, asks why he wasn't retaliating, and Gray said he wasn't done studying ahead. On the last day of duty week, Eugene asked if Gray wanted anything as he was going to the snack bar and Gray asked for a Coke. Teddy in class asks where his bag was. The student in front said a guy from class 5 took it. Hearing the description, he understood it was Gray and runs to him mad. In class 5, Teddy sees his bag soaking in the rain while Gray wiped the board. Gray grabs the bag and hovers it out the window, asking if he came for his bag. Teddy orders Chad to go out and be ready to catch it just in case, which Chad agrees unwillingly. He threatens him while keeping his eye on the bag and gets agitated when he sees Gray letting it slowly slip. Teddy was a delusional person obsessed over superficial possession. That's why he punched the teacher, and that's why he wants to appeal to Philip. Teddy jumps to action the moment Gray drops the bag. Gray uses the chair nearby to stumble on his foot and smack a dusty duster on his eyes, taking his vision. He uses the chance to take out Coke and smacks it on his face while holding his hair. Teddy becomes blind in pain and Gray wraps the curtain on his head while dodging. Teddy tries to unravel the curtain but Gray tightens it and keeps smacking his head with Coke. He throws the bent Coke can and pulls the chair with his feet and climbs it and kicks him. After kicking him for some time, he turns Teddy and draws X on his back and tells him how Helmet got his head smashed after acting like he did. Chad comes back to class soaking wet with a bag in his hand. He is stunned when he sees Teddy's head wrapped in a curtain, trembling on his knees with X drawn on his back. Chad, confused about what he should do, hears cold voice of Gray telling him to take Teddy away. Looking at the state Teddy was, all Chad could think was Gray is a demon. The crazier the opponent, more to the edge should they be pushed to. Eugene, who sat right beside Gray, saw what others who just watched him pummel Teddy couldn't. Gray's arms were trembling. Unlike Gray, who came face to face with reality, Eugene, who never tried to better his situation due to fear, felt pathetic. Alex talks with one of his friends about Jimmy and an excuse to use for his wound when Ben calls. He picks up the call and replies he will be back next week after hearing Ben's worries, and hangs up. Gerard had heard about the injuries but kept quiet while Ben made plans with Alex after he returns. Teddy returns home through the rain hole. Chad returns confused about what to say if Philip finds it. Philip hears a group talk about Teddy and goes to find out a video about Gray and Teddy's fight, ask him to send him the video. The moment Chad entered class he saw Philip and goons looking at Gray versus Teddy on their phone. Philip starts interrogating him and Chad just tells things would have been different if he was there. Even looking at the video, Philip believes he would come out on top in the long run. Philip knew Chad was weaker than Teddy, but he didn't care if either of them were beat. All he need to do was harass the enemy till they give in. Next Monday Ben and Alex meet and Ben suggested going to the pool house, but Alex remembers Jimmy says another time. Ben takes our drink from his bag and tells Alex to have a talk after school. In class 5 Philip and the goons laugh the moment Teddy walks in. Teddy understands that he has been cut off seeing Chad ignore him. After school, Ben tells Alex that he knew about Jimmy because of the pool house attending girl. He understands that Alex was hiding it because he was worried about him, but he can't stand it anymore. Gerard says USUN students looked all talk, but Alex replied Jimmy was different and he was only manageable because of Ben. A student behind Gray informs him that Philip took his bag and told him to come to the incinerator at the rear gate. Knowing nothing would change unless he takes out the main cause Philip, he turns and walks toward the location. Eugene follows Gray even after his refusal. Jimmy and his goons wait outside for a while. Jimmy calls one of the students and tells him to bring Ben to the incinerator at the rear gate and keeps his wallet and bag in case he runs. One of the goons point at Gerard when he comes out saying he was friend with Ben. Jimmy starts talking to Gerard but he is frustrated as he has no time due to his part-time. Jimmy grabs his shoulder, pulls him down and tells him to follow as he already sends word to Ben. Around the incinerator, Gerard is surrounded when Philip drops a bag saying it belongs to one who beat Helmet. Jimmy is happy as he was curious about the freak as Helmet ran away when he ordered him to crush him. Jimmy reminds Philip of payment after work and Philip says yes with a smile. One of the goons keeps pulling Gerard's hair and Gerard kicks him, unable to stand it. Ben, Alex, Gray, and Eugene run toward the location as the fight starts. Jimmy jumps up to Gerard's face surprising him. Gerard kicks Jimmy but he easily blocked and gets punched. As he is trying to get up, Ben arrives. Jimmy starts insulting him while telling a goon to handle the bag of the guy who beat Helmet. Ben tells that Gray had nothing to do with this, but Jimmy just laughs it off saying he wasn't in a position to worry about others. Gray sees a goon carrying his bat at the end of the pathway. He walks up to the guy and asks, but he refuses and starts hitting Gray's head with his chin. Gray headbutts his chin full force, making him stumble and fall back. Jimmy picks up back and looks at the place the goon was standing to see Gray walk out. Ben tries to make Jimmy focus on him, but Jimmy says that Gray had made Helmet disappear and broke one of the goon's jaw so couldn't walk away from it, and tosses the bag on top of a wall. Jack talks to Alex, calling him a coward who would fight one-on-one. Jack punches Alex and Ben smacks him in the face in retaliation. Jimmy tells his goon to attack and everyone jumps into action. Ben and Jack fight one-on-one while Gerard is handling 3 goons at once. Jimmy easily dodges and blocks Ben's punches at first, then he starts countering and lands a big hit in the gut. Alex almost gets hit being distracted by 2 goons walking toward Gray. Gray easily dodges the hit and pulls the goon's shirt over his head, tiring him. As he tries to take the shirt off, Gray kicks him in the face. Philip is laughing seeing his plan to eliminate the big fighter work as Gerard is outnumbered. Jack is beating Alex and Jimmy is handling Ben. On the Gray side, he sees one goon on the floor with the shirt over his head. Gray empties a trash bin and puts it over a goon head who was running at him. He kicked the goon on the leg and pushed him into another trash bin as first, causing him to get stuck. He takes out the bin and starts smacking Good on the face with him. Other goons barely get the shirt off but get stomped on the head. Ben is overwhelmed but the barrage of attacks from Jimmy, he is able to connect a solid hit on the chin but gets attacked by the goons. Jimmy stands up, gets his sense back and tries to go back to Ben but is stopped by a Gray hand on his shoulder. Gray asks for the bag but Jimmy, in a bad mood, tries to punch Gray who easily dodges. He then notices the goons who attacked Gray were knocked out. As he is analyzing the situation, he hears someone running and turns to barely block Ben's kick. Ben tells he will grab the bag afterward and get ready to fight Jimmy again. Jimmy tells Ben not to get cocky just cause one hit landed. Ben notices how other goon starts attacking the moment Jimmy got hit. Jimmy starts attaching and Ben stops dodging and blocking but instead starts countering. As they trade blows, others are surprised with the sound of fist smashing. After a few exchanges, Jimmy starts another barrage of punches which Ben endures till Jimmy loses strength in his arms and Ben lands a solid hit on the face, knocking Jimmy out. Others who know of Jimmy's strength were surprised to see him lose and acknowledge Ben's strength. Philip is shocked to see Ben and the gang win and scared. The trash bin guy regains consciousness and grabs a stick to attack Gray but gets tackled by Eugene. Ben tells it is over and threatens to leave. Alex climbs the wall and tosses the bag to Gray. Ben is not sure if they should enjoy today's victory, not knowing how Jimmy would react. Eugene believes that even if Jimmy attacked he would involve the Union, and he had already lost to Ben before and would feel humiliated if he had to ask for help for the same issue. Ben agrees with the logic. Harper goes to Yoil High to report Kingsley Kwan about the incident, who is trustworthy guy of Donald Na.